And here we go. It is Tuesday, Cowboy Metals live here on goldsilverpros.com. I am your host, Robert Kientz. It is November 15th, 2022. And I say this every week, but man, the year is going by fast. Real quick sound check. We have got sound. Thank you, everybody, for joining the channel. Welcome to the program. It is live time yet again. As a reminder, we do have Super Chat's open. If you want to super chat and ask me a question, I'm guaranteed to answer it. Also, wanted to let you know that we do have a membership service here on YouTube. There are two levels. You can support us with a small contribution every month just for the work we already do. We also have some additional content called Rob Kientz Unfiltered, where I tell you what I really think on a lot of subjects and go into some stuff that we probably won't go here on the channel. If you're interested in supporting us, please do. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Neil Hahn is here. Original Intent has joined. Fantana Ranja is here as well. Jake's Custom Parts and many others have joined the broadcast. Thank you, everybody, for being here. As a reminder, we have this on the channel 5:30 p.m. pretty much every Tuesday on the program. That is Central Time. Other time zones, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and I believe that would be 3:30 p.m. on the West Coast. All right, without further ado, today we're going to be talking about how the New York Fed begins testing of the digital dollar. And before we get into this, I wanted to point out something with regards to how we've been covering this. I first started writing about the digital dollar and central bank digital currencies back, I believe, in April of 2018, and started covering it here on this channel probably sometime in 2019, 2020 after we first started. I do have a series of videos on this from last year on the channel, and we've been covering it ever since here in little bits and bytes, but it made sense to come back and actually do a full presentation on it today because there's news out. Now we have them actually testing the digital dollar. And I do believe that they were farther along the process of creating this digital dollar than they first let on. I think a lot of the creation's been going on in conjunction with the Bitcoin and the private cryptocurrencies or private coins, if you will, for a long time. And I think they've taken from that what they want, and they've created this digital system. I'm going to talk today about some of the working pieces of that and how the existing system really has been set up over a period of time to do this. As a reminder, there is a poll before we get into it. The poll for you guys in the chat is what is a digital dollar? 4 answers: savior of the economy, valid replacement for the dollar, not likely to stick very long, or tool of financial repression. Different answers for you. I can imagine how you guys are going to vote probably. All right, now we have about 80 people in. I think it is time to get started on the share. So without further ado, without gilding the lily. By the way, I said this last time, without further ado and without gilding the lily, and asked you guys in the chat if you could identify to give away some silver via Kinesis. It wasn't identified in the chat during the broadcast. So I went back and looked, but it was in the comments. So I didn't get to award Kinesis silver for that. But as an answer to the question, it is from A Knight's Tale, which is a great movie with Heath Ledger. And I thought the guy that played Geoffrey Chaucer was really good, and I'm drawing a blank on it, but he's a very famous British actor. Has been in a lot of films since then. This is one of his earlier ones, along with Heath, and it's just a great film. It's a fun film that came out, I don't know, about 20 years ago, and I just really enjoyed it. If you guys are interested, take a look at it. That is called A Knight's Tale. All right, on to the presentation we go. I'm going to do a real quick ad here for Skillshare. This is a group that I have been using for a very long time. This is one of our preferred providers. It does help the channel if you sign up. By the way, in the description below, if you're interested in Skillshare, you can sign up and get some discounted access, which I think you guys will like. I'm going to talk about some of their courses here. I've obviously got productivity flagged, as you can see here. As a business owner, I do a lot of productivity, but also as an investor, because to have time, you know, aside from the business and personal life, to be able to look at investments, I need to be highly productive and I need to be efficient. And there are a lot of courses you can, as you can see here on the screen, that Skillshare has about being efficient, no matter what you do. So no matter what you do for a living, these are wonderful classes. Skillshare is not expensive at all, but they have great quality content. A lot of the people that provide content are people like me who are influencers or other professionals or people that run businesses or companies, and they come here to do teaching classes to help you. Great content there if you're interested. Again, link down the bottom. Okay, now on to the program. Let me check and make sure everything's going. Okay, we're good on screen, we are good on sound, and we are good to go. So here we are into it. And I'm sharing a screen for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Make sure that's up on screen. You know, it's looking, there we go. All right, we got it up on screen. So this is from the Federal Bank of New York. I'm just going to walk through some of the research I got There was a Zero Hedge article talking about New York Fed and 12 banking giants, which I'll get to in a minute, but I wanted to explain about what's going on. So the New York Fed has set up this place called the, what's it called? New York Innovation Center, which I'll get to in a minute, to test out central bank digital currency. So this is the Fed testing out a version of central bank digital currency. On this particular article, I wanted to highlight something that we're talking about with regards to that. First of all, the New York Innovation Center of the Fed has something called Project Cedar, which we'll get into. But I wanted to explain at what they're going to be doing in these payments. The Federal Reserve is an active participant in international efforts regarding payment systems via the Committee on Payments and Markets Infrastructures. That's CPMI. Great, we need another acronym. There we go. At the BIS, and for those who don't know who the BIS is, that's the Bank for International Settlements. So the Federal Reserve's CMPI is working with the Bank for International Settlements on CBDCs. What have I said all along? The BIS and the IMF have laid out this plan for central bank digital currencies, and all the world central banks are going to go along with it. And in this article from the New York Fed, they're basically saying the same thing. So they're confirming what I've been saying for about 4 years now. It says here, the CMPI of the New York Fed collects best practices and issues recommendations for managing payments, clearing, and settlement risk across financial market utilities, meaning software and tools and processes. So that would include any software tool or process, including a central bank digital currency. At present, a high priority area of study for the CMPI is coordinating the development of 24/365 real-time settlement systems, basically like FedNow globally. So this is where they connect internationally to other central banks. Innovation in cross-border settlements, translation, digital dollar to digital yuan to digital euro, will reduce liquidity outlays and settlement risks, leading in turn to cheaper cross-border payments. In the current environment of rapid technological change, it's crucial that innovation proceeds responsibly in order to safeguard the stability of the financial system. To that end, on March 9th of this year, President Biden issued an executive order on ensuring responsible development of digital assets. Thank you, Biden. It was going to happen anyway, but of course, the executive order is basically what tells the administration's offices to actually do stuff regarding, hey, let's go check out this CBDC thing. So this executive order outlined the first whole of government approach. I don't know what they mean by whole of government, meaning all resources in the U.S. government are behind this, not just the central bank, which is not really a government entity. It's a privately owned. Very interesting. A government approach to addressing the risks and harnessing the potential benefits of digital assets and their underlying technology. In response, over the past 6 months, agencies across the government have worked together to develop frameworks and policy recommendations that advance the key 6 priorities: consumer and investor protection, promoting financial stability, countering illicit finance, U.S. leadership in the global system, financial inclusion, responsible innovation. Anyway, let's go to the Zero Hedge article and talk a little bit about that. According to a statement by the New York Fed, global banking giants are starting a 12-week digital dollar pilot with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Participants announced on Tuesday. Programmable U.S. dollars may be necessary to support new business models and provide a foundation to much-needed innovations. Tony McLaughlin, Managing Director for Emerging Payments at Citigroup's Treasury. So who are the banks that are going to be involved? Bank of New York Mellon, HSBC, PNC, Dominion Bank, Truist Financial, U.S. Bank Corp., along with some others, Citigroup, HSBC Holdings, Mastercard, Wells Fargo. By the way, a lot of these banks are the same ones that play around the commodities and the derivative markets. They're also in everything. So when we say banks have a lot of input into the financial system, we ain't joking. The banks have a lot of input. In addition to weighing central bank digital currencies and compliant stablecoins, there should be the option of leveraging the scale and economic value of bank deposits. 𝙁𝙁𝙇𝙗, Mastercard's head of crypto and blockchain, said in a statement. The regulated liability network is an innovative proof of concept led by the industry that could help shape how consumers and businesses view the credibility of token-based payments. So here's the head of Mastercard wanting to get involved. Why? Because there's money involved. If you can get transaction fees from the central bank digital currencies, you better bet they're going to buy into it. Or that let's say this, the Mastercard and Visa want to align with whatever the new currency is because they are a conduit to that currency. In other words, when you use Mastercard and Visa, you're not really spending currency, it's an IOU. And that IOU and that system that they set up to do that, to facilitate that where you don't have the cash right away, you just want to use a card for convenience sake, That's where they make the transaction fee. So of course, Mastercard and Citibank are into this. So let's get more from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. In an article on November 15th, which would be today, it says New York Innovation Center to explore feasibility of theoretical payment system designed to facilitate and settle digital asset transactions. By the way, all this testing that they're doing is coming in 2 stages. I anticipate there will be more than 2 at some point in time, but 2 for right now, and we'll go over both of them. So it says here, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York today announced that this New York Innovation Center, and of course, another acronym, NYIC, because, you know, it's not a government thing unless you create a bunch of acronyms to make it seem like this is all legitimate. We got the NYIC and the NY Fed and blah. I mean, it's all BS, right? It's all what the technocrats do in the way that they frame this to make it seem like it's going to be legitimate. Essentially, what they're doing is they're taking away cash. You're going to be a central bank digital currency. They're going to control everything and control you through that system, essentially, is what's going to happen. This is what the system is. But they dress it up in these nice little concepts around digital inclusion. Yes, you want to include people that you haven't been able to capture in your snares. That's what digital inclusion is. All right, anyway, back to the article. The NYIC will participate in proof of concept project to explore the feasibility of an interoperable network of central bank wholesale digital money, blah, 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 blah. It's experimenting with the concept of a regulated liability network. Now, this is where they tie together things like debts and digital currencies. They're saying, well, we have liabilities we have to fulfill. And wouldn't it be better if we could do this faster? It would just help the financial system work so much better and maybe even root out some of the problems. No, it's going to create more problems, but they're going to convince you that speed and technology will solve all problems, even though the problems that we have aren't rooted in lack of speed or technology. It's bad actors in the system robbing people blind of their money. So I don't see how the technology is going to solve that. It's going to let them rob you faster, I guess. It will test technical feasibility, legal viability, and business applicability. Why? Because they have to stand up to all of the lawsuits that are coming when they do this. So what they're doing is they're future-proofing this to where you got to accept it. And you can try suing them, but all of these tests are around making sure they're sue-proof. The NYIC looks forward to collaborating with members of the banking community to advance research on asset tokenization, blah, 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 blah. Oh, gosh. Some more. They have a whole website or landing page, if you will, set up the New York Fed, facilitating wholesale digital asset settlement. Notice there are multiple entities connected here, which represent the banking system, corporate America, international sovereigns. That's at the level it's doing. It ain't for you and me. You don't see little people in houses here. You have big commercial banks, you have central banks, and you have sovereigns, and they're the ones pushing this down to you. But they ain't designing it with you in mind because you ain't in here. Here's the problem, Spade. Here's the problem that they need to define, that they need to solve. And they need to define that problem in a way which allows them to solve it with what they want. And so what they'll define their problem as if we all got together and, oh, this is the problem. This is the problem as they define it, not like we had a political discussion on this or town halls on this, or even in the financial media. It's a problem they made up so they can implement the solution. Problem, solution. Create the problem, creates chaos, come with the solution you want. Standard operating model. Distributed ledgers, reading here from the website. Distributed ledgers enable a common source of truth for asset exchange, as well as advancements in payment, such as delivery versus payment. However, current designs for exchange mechanisms based on digital ledger technology do not enable interoperable transfer. In other words, Bitcoin doesn't allow them to connect all central bank digital currencies together so that they can control it. That's what they're saying here. They need to create a system they can control and is interoperable you can't get out of. Current designs based on distributed ledger technology do not enable interoperable transfer. They don't enable interoperable transfer with governments because it's supposed to be outside the government. We don't want interoperable transfer with governments. That's the whole effing point of Bitcoin in the crypto space. But they do so that they can control it and make money off of it. See, they're just telling you right there what they're doing. This is criminal. It's criminal. It's not in the Constitution. We didn't vote on this. They create a problem to be solved. It's not really a problem. Bitcoin wasn't there to facilitate, and Ethereum, aren't there to facilitate the central bank system. And I don't know anybody that sees a problem that the fact that Bitcoin doesn't interoperate with the Fed as an issue. The whole point was to circumvent the Fed and the central bank. In a 12-week proof of concept project, the regulated liability network, the NYC will experiment with the concept of regulated liability network. Regulated liability network is a concept for financial market infrastructure, again, with the fucking acronyms or acronyms. I want to say anachronism, it's not the right word. Acronyms that drive me up a wall, because you throw an acronym on it and you stick a web page up, and all of a sudden we feel we get the sense that everybody's agreed on this, and ooh, it's all BS. Some kid put together this website, threw a bunch, they decide on a bunch of acronyms, and all of a sudden it's legit, right? Facilitating digital asset transactions that connect deposits held at regulated financial institutions. In other words, the commercial banks. So this is collusion between the commercial banks, the central banks, and the governments to control everything and basically rob you blind through fees. This theoretical FMI provides a multi-asset, always-on programmable infrastructure. Blah, 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 blah. You know what that means? This is the system we're going to put that you can't get out of. Central bank, who are the players? Who did I say? Central bank, commercial bank, non-bank issuer liabilities. This is debt. Liabilities that you owe, if they can tie it to the debt system, including things like taxes, you have to use it. So you're going to get the central banks issuing wholesale currency, commercial banks taking wholesale and issuing more crap versions of retail currency, which is going to be rehypothecated and or fractional reserves so that you get it at a much less worth than the commercial banks got it. That's their tax and the money they make. It's the same way the fiat system works. This is just a digital version of the freaking fiat system. Okay? This is how they're going to make their money. What are they going to do? Assess. What's the point of this project, of the test? The test is to assess the feasibility of distributed ledger technology, illuminate technical and functional design considerations, and gain insight. So in other words, this is not distributed ledger. They're not using distributed ledger. They don't need to test this. If you want to know if distributed ledger works, look at the existing crypto space. And if you don't like it, get them to fix it. Get them to program something new in. Why do we need a new one? We don't. And it's not distributed. It's going to be owned by the Fed. There's nothing effing distributed about a central bank digital currency. It's central. And they're trying to equate the problems with Bitcoin and solve it and use Bitcoin language to convince you this is a better version of Bitcoin. It ain't. And it ain't the same damn thing either. Project Cedar. What is Project Cedar? Improving cross-border payments with blockchain technology. Oh, this is international transfer between the digital dollar, the digital yuan, the digital rand, the digital what the F ever. Okay, they want the whole world doing this, so you can't get out. You can't fly and live somewhere else and live under some other country's law and get out of the system. It's going to be everywhere. Do you understand that? That's what Project Cedar is to say you cannot get out. We will not let you get out. You're never getting out because we got Project Cedar. They need to call it Project Round Up Americans and throw them in digital concentration camps. And no, I'm not over dramatizing this. If they control the money, they control a whole lot of other stuff, including industry, including your bank account. And look at what the Chinese are doing with social credit scores. If they tie this into social media and social credit system, boy, I might as well be a prisoner in my own apartment. They're not going to like what I have to say, right? And I think that's what this is facilitating. So here's the problem that they define so that they can figure out how to make this system worldwide and not allow you any way to get out of it. Again, they're defining the problem. I didn't say this is a problem. I don't see it as a problem. I don't know anybody else who sees it as a problem. But because it's on this fancy webpage of the New York Fed, oh, I'm sure that they got together focus groups and talked about this. I'm sure that they included, 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙉𝙀𝙍 and Sally Homemaker in this. I'm absolutely positive they asked us about this because, in our small R Republican system, the people have to consent to any new law or any new system, especially a currency in which the Constitution says only gold and silver in payment of debts. But they didn't really ask us, did they? They defined the problem, put it on a webpage, it makes it look legit. Okay, here, what's the problem and what are they trying to solve with Project Cedar? According to them, wholesale cross-border payments are financial transactions between central banks, private sector banks, corporations, and other institutions. Notice how you, the people, aren't in there because they don't care about you. They care about the corporate overlords and the central banks and financial institutions who are running the program and seek to benefit from the running of this program because they're going to get fees and money. So as long as they can get the agreement of them, they can foist it on you. Okay, you see how that works? They don't care about you. And they're using a one little potential use of this to justify the whole thing, the implementation of the whole thing. FX spot trades. Now, how many, if you walk down the street and talk to Joe the plumber, you think he's rolling FX spot trades? You think he's got a platform and he signed up an account and paid $10,000 a year for one of these platforms and he's trading FX, doing FX spot? No. Who does FX spot trades? The banks, large institutions, all of these people, central banks, private sector banks, corporations, and other institutions. Not you and me. It ain't for you and me. It never was. But they're going to make it seem like it's going to benefit you, even though you're not a stakeholder because you're not in any of these fucking documents. They don't want your opinion. Okay, it goes on to say here, while cross-border payments function well, there are opportunities for improvement. It takes around 2 days for FX spot transaction to settle. And oh my God, 2 days is horrible. Let's do it in 15 seconds through Project Cedar. They want faster payments, atomic settlement. This one is where the service and the payment are confirmed at the same time. So basically think smart contract. Atomic settlement would enable smart contract. What's a smart contract? Smart contract lays out all the terms digitally, which can be built into the blockchain, that says, I'm buying lumber from China. It needs to be this size, this quality, blah, blah, blah. It needs to be delivered on this day. And the atomic settlement is saying, you get all that from China, the US sends the money together, boom, you have an agreement. So they just want commerce to be faster. This is actually pretty cool. The problem is smart contracts, it's relatively good, but it's going to enable them to basically facilitate and regulate global trade through things like smart contracts and digital currencies. And there is not going to be a way out of the system from a trade perspective. So now think about it. They've roped in the banks, they've roped in the spend, they've roped in the people, they've roped in corporate America, they've roped in financial institutions, and now they're roping in international trade. If they rope all of this into this digital system, in what way could you possibly get out of it, buy goods and services, and survive? And the answer is, you can't. Because why? They thought of everything. Next article. Phase 1 results. I said this would be in 2 phases. The phase 1 results came out, well, actually on my birthday, November 4th. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York today issued a report on phase 1 results of Project Cedar. And that's the one where they implement it all over the world so you can't get out. The inaugural project of its New York Innovation Center, blah, blah, blah. Examine the potential application of distributed ledger technology, blah, blah, blah. The report aims to contribute to broad and transparent public dialogue. Guess what? I have the report. Let's talk about the report. I'm going to check on the chat here real quick, make sure we have sound. Everything is good. Oh, Peter Frowan is in the house riding shotgun, doing moderating duties. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you volunteering and doing that. Looks like we have a couple hundred in too, so we're fully built out on the show. Let's get into some of the details, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Now, this is not one of the reports I usually go over, which is really heavy and has so much in it. It's actually pretty simple because essentially what are they doing? They're just facilitating digital currencies. It's not like there's all that needs to be in here. All the research about how this is going to work was done years ago. This is just a nice shiny little brochure saying, yeah, we're going to do this. And this is how it's going to work. And by the way, this doesn't need to be complicated because we've already done all the damn work. So it's basically just going over what Project Cedar is. I'm not going to re-go over all of that. But it does go on to say who's involved. It does go on to say blah, blah, blah. Here's the problem statement they created out of nowhere that has nothing to do with what we want. Only the commercial banks, the financial institutions, trade partners, everybody that you would need to do to control trade and money and finance and wealth without ever asking the people. And so anyway, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff is in here. They got a nice little glossy thing. Core to Project Cedar solution is ledger infrastructure of the experiment, a bespoke system leveraging ideas from existing digital currency technologies provide functionally relevant for worldwide CBDC. Phase 1 of Project Cedar was designed around a multi-ledger construct in which each currency is maintained on a separate ledger, operated by its respective central bank. What are they telling you there? This is the central banks getting together and implementing the system so you can't get out of it. There you go. And they're telling you some of the technologies that we don't really care. But here are the results. Test results revealed that blockchain-enabled payments settles transactions via in 10 seconds, big whoopee, on average, and that throughput across the system increases as additional currencies are included, of course, because you're building a web. and you're building more connecting points. Thinking about connecting cities and you're building more bridges across the river, of course, it's going to go faster. Modular ecosystem of ledgers has a potential for continued scalability, and a DLT could enable atomic settlement faster than the current industry standard of 2 days. So what they're saying here, modular ecosystem has potential for continued scalability. If you were to run this on a single ledger, you would kill it within about 5 seconds. Because think about almost 8 billion people in the world and all the transactions that go on. There's no way you can run that on a single ledger. That's why Bitcoin can't run the world's finances. It needs to be improved. You need bigger blocks and all that kind of stuff. They realize this problem. Why? Because they figured it out through Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all that. The private sector figured out all the problems, so they built the central bank digital currencies to address it. And one thing that I've said for years is it's going to be a federated system. You're going to have multiple levels of the ledgers to handle the throughput that's needed for all the transactions, and to allow each sovereign central bank to have their own space to operate in, and allow all the regulation between the central banks for the control and all that good stuff. And that's exactly what they're doing. It's a federated multi-tier system of different ledgers. And while a single ledger can't handle the transaction volume you need, if you build a bunch of them, they can all of a sudden, because you get not only the network effect, but you get what they're basically saying here is almost infinite scalability. So it's not that a single instance of the ledger is going to run everything. They're going to put so many instances of ledgers in there that it's going to become a very complex multi-stage system that works. And as long as each ledger can settle to each other and they can get consensus, which they can, then this is going to work and it's going to be able to scale. And you can see that the results in the paper. Last one. Monetary Authority of Singapore and the New York Fed collaborate to explore potential enhancements to CBDCs. The guy in Singapore says, Project Cedar Phase 2, this is Phase 2, to evaluate the benefits of wholesale CBDCs and help build capabilities for a future financial infrastructure that's open and interoperable. The project takes a practical approach for any future wholesale CBDC to be interoperable. In other words, if Singapore, in this case, digital currency operates differently according to their laws and their wants and needs of their particular culture, that's okay, because they're just building a system to connect it to. As long as they settle the same, their ledger can run different than our ledger. But as long as those settlements are legitimate and confirmed atomically, they'll be okay. That's what they're saying. And they just go on and talk more about it. So there's tons of stuff out here. They're not hiding anything, ladies and gentlemen. It's all out there for you just to see what the heck is going on. And you know, I hate to keep sounding like a broken record. Yes, I've said this about 5,000 times in the last 4 years. Yes, everything to the detail about what I said would come true is coming true. And that's why you come to the program. But more importantly, know how far along they are. If you had started following this 3 or 4 years ago, you'd have said this take 20 years to get in place. The private digital currencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum were put there for the purpose of building this system so that the government could come in and take over. And with what's going on with FTX and certain of the exchanges and all the things that are going on with the hacking of the exchanges and people's, digital wallets and things, the private cryptocurrency space is not developed enough that people are going to trust it. And what the governments are going to do is they're going to come down hard on FTX and say, see all these problems, we need to regulate and create a solution. So they did 2 things. Whenever they farmed out central or digital currency concept to the private sector, they got them to build it, but they're going to take all the F-ups and screw-ups or stages of development, because you have to test something out, figure out where it's broken. It's like beta testing a software program. Anybody that's been in any computer science field knows this. You beta test something, you go back, you fix it. So as they go through that process, all the government's going to do is say, ooh, broken, we need to regulate. Ooh, broken, we need to regulate. Not understanding that innovation will take care of those issues over time. They're going to use the issues to develop what they want, and they're going to X out the private cryptos. So if you're in a lot of these private cryptos, just get ready to get the hell regulated out of you, just like gold and silver are. It's like the rest of the financial markets. And they're going to try to pin it down and keep those private cryptos from gaining momentum. They're going to do it legally. They're going to do it technically. And really, if they regulate the exchanges and you can exchange your crypto through exchanges, you then go to a system in which pretend this is a crypto wallet. It's not. It's the cover to my camera. But pretend this is a little crypto wallet. I don't have mine on me. And you hand it to someone in a physical sense. Yes, you can trade Bitcoin. Does the rest of the world know? But no, because you're not connected to the Bitcoin system. Can you let the system know without going through exchange? Yeah, you can do your own hosted Bitcoin node and send it out there and let people validate. But as soon as you do that, they know who you are. So if this comes to pass and you can't use the crypto exchanges and they really lock down private cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, all those, then essentially they become just gold, silver, or cash. And I'd rather have gold, silver, or cash because it's more recognized than the private cryptos. So it'll be interesting to see what they do to the private crypto space to push those out, to bring in and to solve the problem that they didn't ask us about and just ask the technocrats and the banks who are going to make all the money off of this. What's the problem we need to solve? And they're going to do that. I do think it's a big threat to private digital tokens. I do think it's a threat to cash. I know it's a threat to cash as a replacement for cash, and it's a threat to gold and silver as a currency. And so this is something everybody needs to be aware of. It's very, very important to understand how this is working and how far along they are. It's also important to understand they've been a lot farther than they ever told you, and that there are a tremendous amount of resources going into developing this. And it's good to know where we are as a checkpoint on this. And we're going to end up the poll. The poll I put out was, what is a digital dollar? 2% say savior of the economy. 6% say valid replacement for the dollar. 14% are not thinking it's going to stick very long. Somehow it's going to fail or just not be accepted. And 78%, the overwhelming majority, say it's a tool of financial repression. It could be any of those things. I'd like to get your viewpoint on that. Thank you, everybody, for voting in the poll. I see no super chats. I don't know if there's any questions to be answered. As I'm looking through the chat, a comment by Ridge Runner, Rob, don't talk like a native Texan, uses fancy words. Making fun of Texas, which I don't mind. I take that. I love Texas. And yes, we do use fancy words down here, but funny comment. Thank you. I don't see any questions, guys. You guys are just too smart. You always are. So I don't see questions. I don't see super chats. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. This is a good one, and it doesn't need to be long to talk about what's going on. It just needs to tell us what's going on. And I think what I'll do is I'll do a little playlist on YouTube, and I'll put together all my previous videos and CBDCs and add this one to it. So you can have a little playlist you can go through. Remember, guys, to stick on the channel because we have other playlists you may want to take a look at. You know, as you look at the website, we've got a playlist on the Perth Mint series. We've got a playlist on my interview with the guy that was responsible for catching like illegal or bad trades, you know, with the CFTC on the commodities markets. We've got a bunch of stuff on how the precious metals markets work, and a bunch of great interviews with people as well. So stick with the channel. Go check out that stuff if you guys don't mind. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. Oh, we do have a question. Sorry, last one. Yamir says, do the elections affect gold and silver? I do, because right now it looks like the Republicans may win the House. They're only a few seats away from doing that. I think they're like 2. I think they have 216 right now. They need 218 or 219. Depending on who you ask, it gets confusing. But I thought the number was 219. Somebody said 218, but they're just a couple of seats away. They're a couple of seats away while leading in 4 races. So the Republicans are going to get a slight majority in the House. It looks like the Democrats are going to win the Senate. The wave, the red wave or whatever Republican wave people thought was coming didn't come for whatever reason. You guys can speculate on that. But it looks like we're going to have a mixed House, Senate, and then a Democratic president. It will affect it because some of the policies we get through, although a lot of the spending bills originate from the House, and probably a lot of the spending will come down, at least on Democrat projects, because I don't know they'll be able to get them through. So there'll be a little bit of gridlock going forward, but that's not going to stop the government from really getting something punched through if they want. Will it affect prices? Yeah. Over the long term, it'll drive them up because you're going to have inflation and financial repression, all that kind of stuff. In the short term, I do expect gold and silver trade a little bit higher on expectations of uncertainty, but a lot of the uncertainty is not just the elections, it's the Fed, what they're going to do. And also I've been talking about and wrote a blog on JM Bullion today, jmbullion.com/blog. I do their content and or contribute to their content. And I talked about the holiday shopping season, and this time may be different because usually the fourth quarter, the U.S. economy makes a lot of money because the consumer comes out and spends. This time they're spending, but they're putting it on credit cards and mortgage debt's going up. So I don't think we'll have a consumer-led recovery. So we're going to wait till the first quarter of 2023 and see where the economy goes. I think it's going to be a little tenuous given the data we're seeing now. But well, of course, we're going to cover all that on the channel. Thanks everybody for joining. This is going to wrap it up. Appreciate so much everything that you guys do for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. And for everybody that supports our service as well on Yeah, the membership service we have on YouTube. Thank you guys for supporting it. Until next time, this is Rob Kientz, Gold Silver Pros. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Next week, we're back with another Cowboy Metals live. And then this Thursday, we've got content as well. And don't forget, every Sunday afternoon before the markets open, we do our weekly market wrap, where we talk about what happened last week, what's likely to happen this week. And I go over detail on the gold and silver trade, including the COMEX data. I talk about Shanghai. I talk about the London markets, and I tell you who's doing what in the gold and silver trade. Don't miss that. It is by far the most popular recurring broadcast we have. And usually that comes out Sunday between 3 and 5 p.m. Central Time. All right, stick to the channel, guys. Lots of more content. But until next time, we'll see you. This has been Rob with Gold Silver Pros.